And today's conversation is about Claude Skills, which is a relatively new feature launched by Anthropic just maybe a few weeks ago. And I find this very, very powerful. So I want to share what I've learned so far. I want to share some techniques. I want to share some templates and hopefully inspire you all on how to create Cloud Skills and how to use them. I also run a training program called AI for product managers. This is a bootcamp. So this is a hands-on training program where participants actually practice AI techniques, AI prompts, by coding, and over the course of 2.5 weeks, they go from a problem statement to generating a list of possible solutions to creating one with vibe coding and then getting feedback from other participants on that. So simulating the whole life cycle of product development. How does today's session work? I think there are three main sections I would like to cover. The first one is, of course, what are skills and why they matter. Then we're going to do a little bit of an anatomy of a skill, and in particular, how to create one, what is the structure to use, and different tools available inside Claude. And then we will finish by establishing a process to actually build, test, and iterate on the skills so we can improve over time. So let's start with what skills are and why they matter. So at the beginning of AI, everybody spoke about prompt engineering. And we tried to get better at doing prompt engineering. And then all of a sudden, we were not talking about prompt engineering anymore. We were talking about context engineering. And realizing that AI can only do this much without the proper understanding of what the user really needs, what background information it needs to work on, what data is available. So all of that is context. Now everybody is talking about skills. This is the focus of today. I think it's the next level. And it's not going to replace context engineering, but it's going to really accelerate that, empowering users to train your AI machines in ways that is not possible otherwise, and also to make those skills available across an entire team. So everybody works in the same way without having to create a library of prompts to copy from. So what is the problem with prompts? Every conversation basically starts from zero, right? You start a new chat, you need to copy and paste your prompts. Yes, you can set custom instructions in most of the AI tools that are repeatable instructions. You can create a project and set custom instruction for a project. All of that is great, but still, it feels like we're always starting from zero. And the expertise is also in your head, especially if you're working in a team. Sometimes one person may be more experienced than others in prompt engineering or context engineering. Quality depends on who's prompting the day, and then it's hard to share unless I create like a library of prompts that is available to my entire team. So skills actually solve many of these problems and create new opportunities. First of all, the main advantage of skills is that they can train Claude. I'm using Claude here as the main example, but the competitors are also launching skills in a maybe slightly different fashion. Google just announced it for Gemini inside the Chrome browser, for example. But the Claude is the one that is really been doing a good job for this. So you can train Claude on how to perform a task. You can basically train your AI on how to do things. You can tell Claude when to trigger the skill and how to behave. It's reusable, it's shareable, and then you can expand your skills with additional information like additional scripts, templates, reference docs, additional data that the skill may leverage when it performs a task for you. Let's look at the anatomy of a skill. Then I'm going to do some sharing of some skills examples. There are really three components of the skill. The first one is the front matter. Basically, this is the name and the description that tells Claude when to use the skill. Claude needs to know when to trigger the skill. So you need to kind of tell Claude, hey, you trigger the skill when I say this, when I use these words, when I need this kind of information. You do that in plain English or in plain language, whatever language you're using, and that's how you train it. Then the second piece is the skill.md, that stands for markdown. That's the file that you create. You can create it in as a file in your file system. For example, if you're using Cloud Cowork, or you can create that inside Claude UI if you're using that on the web, for example. And in fact, Claude even has a tool that allows a guided creation of the skill, making it easier for everybody to do that. And then finally, number three, that's the next level. If you want to expand your skill, for example, to use your specific reference doc, templates, data, and so on, you can add all these documents to your skill. An example here is this. For example, for a team that needs to write compliance documents, typically there is a specific format we need to follow, like template for the document, but also specific reference materials that we need to refer to and incorporate into our documents. I could make all of that available to my skill, so I don't have to reload it every time. Claude already knows it. So let's look at some examples. Let's make it actionable. First of all, let's open up Claude. And this is the typical UI on the web interface. Where are the skills? They are in this button here called Customize. So when you click on it, you have a couple options. Really, what I'm interested in is skills. So I'm opening that, and here is the list of skills that are available in my account. Some of these I created, some of these come from a template. For each one of them, I'm going to focus on create a PRD today as an example. For each one of them, you can actually see the skill definition here. This is in plain text, readable. It's not really the markdown code behind the skill, but that's what makes it more humanly accessible. Now, there are a couple of options here, things I can do with the skill. For example, I could edit. I can edit it inside Claude. If I want to change anything here, I can now change it. And this is going to be important for the third step in our conversation today when we talk about that. Here is the description. And when I'm done, I can save it, and it's going to basically update the skill. I can also download it. So if I click the download button, it's going to ask me, of course, where I want to save the file. Now, notice this. It's going to save it as a .skill file. And that is actually very nice because I can now share the file with somebody else on my team, for example. And Claude automatically can import the skill because it recognizes the format. Now, that format is nothing really special. It's actually a zip file. So if you change the extension from .skill to .zip, you can open the file and extract and then edit it. But it's just a little trick here. Now, I want to share a couple of things here. First, if you press the plus button here, you can add new skills. And Claude has a library already created, so you can browse the skills They are filtered with the different categories and so on. Basically, there is a lot of different skills available. And you can maybe try some of these, experiment, learn, these kind of things. Or you can create a new skill. That's the interesting part. Now, here there are three options. The first one is upload the skill. And that's what I was talking about earlier. If you have a .skill file somebody gave you, you can upload it here, and now you can make your own. You can write the skill instructions. For example, you can use an editor. Any tool that allows you to write any markdown document is fine. I'm going to share an example in a second. And then you copy and paste here. Or you can create with Claude. I'm going to select this to give you an example. So here I'm using Claude to actually create a new skill. And what I would like to do is I would like to create a new skill that allows me to do actually allows Claude to recommend a recipe that I would like, that I can cook in my house. And I want to do that. First, I would like Claude to ask me a series of questions. Like, for example, what I am in the mood to eat today. So first, okay, oops. I need to edit that. Okay, so create a new skill. I think it's already there. First, ask me questions. And for example, what am I in the mood to eat today? And two, what are 2 or 3 ingredients available? Then provide a couple of recommendations for recipes. And I want something I can do in less than it's just something new I'm trying today. Let's see how it works. So basically, I create a skill here. I want Claude first to start asking me questions and then provide the recommendation. And it's going to compliment me as usual. Great concept. And here is an example. What are you in the mood to eat today? Let's say something like, yeah, savory and hearty. And I'd probably go with maybe some pasta or cheese or eggs. And it's gonna give me the answer here. So basically simulating the behavior of the skill. And whatever answer is gonna generate, come on. So we got the answer. Now I can get this with the prompt, right? But I want to say this as a skill. In fact, now it says, now ready to build a skill, is using the skill creator to actually create that. I got the full picture. There we go. So this is one important piece of the skill. When it should trigger, like phrases like, what should I cook? Or recipe ideas, what can I make with? I'm hungry, and so on. In general, you want to have a trigger phase that is specific, right? Really something that is clear, specific, so that you don't get your skill triggered even when you're talking about something completely different. So don't use just 1 or 2 words, but use maybe something more specific. Like, for example, I need help with what to cook. That could be the trigger phase. A couple of questions before I write the skill. Should time constraints be under 10 minutes? And should the mood option always be the four we use? So for one, ask to the user, and for two, yes. There we go. So this, of course, is a completely made up example. I'm doing it live right now. It's going to take a little bit of time to go through. You can customize and create any type of skills, really, especially if you already have a library of prompts, you can convert them into a set of skills. And it's doing whatever it needs to do. So while it's doing this, I'm going to open another Claude window, and I'm going to share a skill that I already created. Let me do that. In fact, I'm going to use that in the chat. I would like to create a PRD, so that's a product requirement document for a new product idea I'm working on. This is a competitor of Uber Eats in the food delivery space. The trigger keyword here is create a PRD. So I previously instructed Claude about that. So now as I enter this prompt, it should trigger the PRD skill. There we go. In the PRD skill, I asked Claude to ask me a few questions before actually creating the PRD. And that's what they should do next. Here we go. So what's the core differentiation from Uber Eats? And I can answer some of these questions. Let's say better restaurant selection. Who is the primary customer you're designing this? And I would say families. What stage is this product at? Right now, I have just a concept. I instructed my skill to really understand the problem, understand the solution, understand the customer before doing any work. So it's going to ask me a few additional questions. What does local focus mean? And maybe we can select a couple of these. What's the primary pain point? Let's say the first one. Do you have a geographic launch market broad from the start? What's your intended revenue model? Let's say subscription. I'm just going through quickly here just to give you an example. How do you manage the multi-preference family, group card, and one person? What's your primary platform for launch? Web first. Perfect. And now it's going to write the PRD in a Word document. And in a few seconds, we should be able to see that. Let's go back to the recipe recommender. In the meantime, Claude completed the skill. And in fact, on the right side here is giving me the preview of the skill with all the instruction. So step one, ask 3 questions using whatever. And these are the questions. Step 2, recommend 2-3 recipes and some guidelines. If I need to, I can edit this, I can change, update the skill. When I'm ready, I can press the button, save the skill. And now the skill is saved. So if I open a new chat and I want help with deciding what to cook, there was a trigger sentence, or I can call the skill itself by having the backslash, and there would be the quick recipe recommender. So now we are running the skill. And it's going to ask the questions that we instructed the skill to ask. Let's see if it's doing that. Here we go. And that's now executing the work of the skill. Let's go back to the PRD. It's still working on that thing. Okay. Now we can open the skill that we just created. So quick recipe recommender. And here is the details. This is what Claude created based on the input I gave. So description and the instructions. If I want to change any of this, I can just edit this, and now I can edit. Change the description, change the instructions, and so on. So that's how you can create a new skill using the Create with Claude option. What I want to share is on the other window, we are creating the PRD. We just answered a bunch of questions earlier on that Uber Eats competitor application. And Claude just created the PRD for me. The app is called Table 4. There is a section here for problem statement, another section for solution, another one for success metrics, risk, autoscope, user stories, and then implementation decisions, and then finally testing decisions. Where are all these sections coming from? That's something else I would like to share. So let me change my share screen here, because I'm going to share another screen. Here we go. I opened the create a PRD skill, the skill.md file, and you can see the structure here. The top two lines are always there. This is pretty standard. The first one is the name of the skill, and the second one is the description. You can edit this inside Claude, or you can edit that manually using an editor like this one. Then here are the instructions to Claude. In fact, I'm giving it 6 instructions. First of all, ask the user for a detailed description of the problem they want to solve. Then ensure the ideal customer profile is properly understood. Ask the user for a description of the solution. Then interview the user about every aspect of the plan. Sketch out the major features, and then once you have a complete understanding, use the template below to write the PRD. This is what I wanted to share. So this is the PRD. You can see the tag here to start the template is divided in sections. The first one is problem statement, then solution, success metrics. All of these are tagged, and Claude is able to recognize them. This is actually in H2 to be able to format the document in a proper way. One of the sections here is user stories, and I provide a format for the user story. Then is a section for implementation decision, testing decision, and further notes. These are the same section that Claude used when created the PRD document. And this is the end of the template. So I can be very specific in how I want Claude to behave and how I want the output to be created. Now, without the skill, I had to copy this prompt every single time and copy and paste it. But because I have the skill now defined, all I did was what you saw on the screen earlier. So I said, create a PRD for a new product idea I'm working on. And then Claude started asking me questions to refine the idea, refine the understanding before it had enough to be able to create this PRD. That is the magic of the skills, I think. It's fantastic. And I could take that file, I could share it to my team, and now everybody would have access to the same skill and basically have Claude behave in the same way for any given problem. In theory, that could support even versioning, because I could share that with GitHub, for example, with my team, And every time somebody makes a change to the skill.md file, that gets distributed to everybody else automatically. So there are ways to share the document, or maybe you put that in Dropbox or whatever file sharing tool you use to update the skills as you go. So let's review what we did together. We spoke about skills. We spoke about how to create a skill. You can either use the library or you create your own. We did a demo we create with Claude. I spoke about uploading a skill. If you already have one created, you can export and then upload in a different computer, different Claude version. And we also spoke about updating an existing skill by editing it with this button here, this option here, edit with edit button over here. And then we ran a couple of examples, actually running the skill in the Claude chat. And I just lost my place here. Here we go. We ran one of the skills and created the PRD. So going back to our conversation, we cover step 1 and step 2. Step 3 is about providing additional context for the skill to execute. This is great, for example, if you're using CoWork. CoWork runs on your computer. It has access to all the files on your computer you want to give access to. If you create skills inside CoWork, they're going to be saved in your file system, so you can actually edit the files more easily. And you can expand those skills with additional documents. Just copy them in the skill folder, and they will become available to the skill whenever the skill needs to load them. This way you can load templates, writing guides, documentation guides, additional data that the skill may need to use. So what is the approach here to kind of work with skills, improve, and so on? Using that flow, build, test, iterate, the loop that makes skills really reliable is to start by drafting a skill. And you could write skill.md yourself or use Claude to do that. Then you test it. So once you have the test created, open another chat and just test the skill and see what kind of responses you have. Of course, evaluate it like you will do with a normal prompt. Evaluate if the output you're getting kind of matches your expectations. Update the skill if you need to. Again, it's easy to do that in Claude. Add additional instructions and then repeat until it's consistent. Now, it seems like a lot of work. In reality, you can do this in a few minutes, maybe in 10 minutes. And it means that very quickly you can create a set of skills for yourself or for your team that you can share. All right. So there is a question here from Annette. Can you share the PRD skill with us? Yes, I can do that. And I can, let's see if I can put that in the Zoom chat. Because it's not a zip file. So let me convert that to a zip file. Too many windows open here, and here we go. Here we go. So if you want to try that skill, I put the skill, the PRD skill, in the Zoom chat. Download it, open Claude, create a new skill by uploading a file. You can upload the zip file directly, and then it's going to create this skill for you. Can it be used with other platforms? Yes. So ChatGPT and now Gemini use the skills as well. The MD format is a markdown format. It's pretty universal, so they should be working with them as well. So key takeaways from today's conversations. Skills. They may seem daunting at first, but really they are markdown files, easy to edit. I gave you an example. You can try with that, or you can create your own by following the prompts in Claude. The most important thing is the description, because that's the trigger. It tells Claude when to run your skill. So be specific, be clear what condition you want the skill to be triggered. Use the draft, test, iterate cycle a few times just to test your own skills to see if they drive the right results. And expand your skill MD file with additional document templates, writing guides, additional things that may be useful for the skill to work on. Right. So I hope this was useful. To wrap up this conversation, I have maybe one more thing to share, and that is this. I mentioned earlier that I run an AI for product managers training program. In fact, a midday session is starting soon, in a couple of weeks, and evening session is starting next month. All right, so that concludes our my presentation, at least.